It goes back to, because you had mentioned something earlier about how for you brought a richness to the classroom because of your experience. So the amount of kids, the amount of trauma that a lot of students deal with, but we want them to take the SATs or take these comprehensive examinations when they're leaving home hungry. So there's so many different factors as to why they can't even concentrate on Shakespeare in the classroom or these history class. Like, you're not even meeting their physical needs. Yet still you're trying to build them intellectual. No. You got to meet them where they are first. So that is a big point, because the whole socialization process of where they come from, what their home interactions, and that's the benefit that a lot of Black educators, oftentimes who come from those same societies or that fabric of life, that's the richness they bring to the classroom, because you can connect with those students in different levels. When you just mentioned how the kids responded just seeing you, Black man, in the classroom, in my career, I've only had one Black male teacher, and that was in 7th grade. Mr. Parham was a history teacher. One teacher in over 20 years of learning. I had one. And I remember his face. He used to come suit and tie every day. You thought he was a lawyer. He drove a Cadillac. He was the only educator I had in my whole grade school, high school, college experience. One Black professor.
Never had a Black male. And look at the imprint. And actually, I was going to be a part of that trajectory. But I did notice now that it was like, yo, when I got in it, Cole, that's when I was like, yo, this is where I should be, because it sets the foundation. And so I'm a strong advocate, right, for more Black men, particularly in teaching in general, but more in the elementary space, because quite frankly, they're not there. I was on a staff of a campus. We had more than 1,500 elementary students, school student age students. And we had a staff of 60 teachers. 2 of us were Black men.
So you can just imagine.
And we both were on the same grade level.
Same grade. So you can imagine young boys, even young girls, growing up in an educational environment. They leave their homes, it's just mom. They come to school, it's just women all day. And majority of us, it's Caucasian women who educate your kids. So you never see a male authoritative figure unless it's a principal or vice principal or security. That's the only time you see them. But actually working to educate, to cultivate your mind, we're not a part of that process.
What really resonated with me, one of the big things that I was able to do while I was a 2nd grade teacher, I pulled so many Black boys out of special ed. Pulled out so many. The list is too long for me to even name.
Wow.
And it was simply and you know why they were placed in special ed? Because somebody deemed them as a behavior problem. And now by the time they got to me, not only have they been labeled that, this shit is all throughout their cumes, but now they're being medicated for it. Malik just wasn't, excuse my language, Malik just wasn't with your teaching. So Malik had no choice but to talk to other kids, to be sort of disruptive, because your teaching didn't move him. And so I had to and so now you couple with the fact where they're placed in special ed now, and a lot of times, and so one of the things that I was very conscious of, me, y'all, I anything that's connected or attached to me, I want to find out what they're doing. So I would go, they were like, oh, we send these special ed kids to the resource room. So me, Cole, I walked over and like, well, what the hell's going on in the resource room, right? Because this is a trend. And then a lot of the resource rooms, they had the kids sitting, not doing anything, not learning. So now this is compounded upon, so if this happens to you in kinder or first, by the time you get to me, you're screwed. So I did a lot of heavy lifting where I'm pulling kids out who were reading at a kinder level, who weren't knowing how to read at all. I'm talking kids who couldn't even phonetically sound out the alphabets. And so really just doing that work to really shore them up and show them what quality teaching looks like. And so now, I had kids who went on the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th grade, and they come back to my classroom and be like, Mr. Wilson, I need the strategies you showed me. My teachers ain't But I noticed, I remember the stuff you told me, and it's helping me get through. And then they would just come back and solicit my advice, and I'd be more than happy to help them. But the reality of it was, they now had me to connect back to two things: to reflect on what good teaching looks like, and then secondly, using me as a resource. And so one of the beauty that I think my presence brought was the simple fact that not only was I able to show Black boys and girls, for that matter, I'm not leaving out my girls, but you know, we having this man conversation, and one of the things that I wrote a book on that's coming out, I think next year, top of next year, that I wrote a book about, is really how are we really engaging our Black boys in the notion of education? Because we start failing them at a very early age, and they come in with such high hopes and so high self-esteem of themselves. I mean, you know, one of my passions is I want to get more Black folk in STEM. And I can't tell you, in my book, all of these brothers was like, I want to be a scientist, I want to be an engineer, I want to create stuff. And that dream gets crushed because a teacher in their life says, no, this isn't how we do it, or don't even show them the tools of how to get there. Then they're defeated. And so when you don't come across another Black teacher, you go 3 or 4 or 5 grades before you see another one, that hurts. That hurts.
That's true, because the irony of it is, even dealing with college students who are looking to prepare themselves into education, different professions, the overwhelming majority of them who select education, that wasn't their first choice. It's like a default because they can't cut it in other things. So what degree path can I go into that doesn't require a lot of math? And then it always the buzzword I always hear is, I just want to help people, I want to go into education. No. And I sit there and be like, no, if you're not passionate about that, nor are you going to be excellent in it, don't go in there messing up a generation of kids because you just want a paycheck. And because especially in underserved areas like Baltimore, a lot of inner cities, you get the crumbs of teachers. You don't get the excellent ones. You don't get the cream of the crop, because they go to the environments that are less stressful. So those hot zones where there's behavior issues, you got to watch out. There's a lot of craziness, a lot of weirdness going on in the schools. Those kids are not getting the best teachers, and they're not learning anything. And like you said, and then you wonder why the students have no motivation to go to school, because they're essentially, it's like jail. They're going there, going to sit in the classroom. You may give them a couple of handouts. Their minds aren't being activated. They're not being challenged. Nothing. And these are the schools. This is the system that we have set up for a lot of these students.
Yeah.
And I've seen it in cases where I remember a teacher at one school where he kind of thought outside the box and said, you know what, similar to you, how about instead of those students you put in detention, let them be under my guidance, and let me have like a different program. I work with them. The program got too popular, so they felt like it was no longer a punishment. So therefore, we need to cut it out. I just said, you people, are you trying to help the kids or not help the kids?
Right.